Welcome, villains, to episode 105 of the Rules of Villainy. I'm Villain Vince, your host, joined as always by Villain Andy, and today we have a special guest, the mad drafter himself, Heath. How we doing tonight, gentlemen?
Doing good. Yeah.
Doing great.
Oh, you had me at Can We Talk Limited?
Yes. So that's a preview here of the episode. We are going to be talking all things limited, and we're really excited to. But before we get into the main segment here, we do have some underworld news going on here. We have that Ravensburger announced the special D23 show bundle for those that are attending D23 in August. That bundle comes with the Disney Lorcana Quest of Wonders, an Illumineers lore book, Winnie the Pooh Honey Wizard Premium Foil Mat, so much like the playmats that we've seen for both the Woody and Buzz and the Minnie and Mickey playmat before. And also we have the 2026 D23 collection with Angel, Siren Singer, Mushu, Stealthy Dragon, Judy Hopps Uncovering Clues, Pocahontas Following the Wind, Mr. Incredible Taking Out the Trash, and an unknown Ruby card. Potentially a card, my prediction, in Hyperion City is going to be that Ruby card.
Hyperia.
Let's
not have a return of the Let's not have a return.
Listen, long-time listeners will know frequently that I cannot get sets right. All right, I've been doing good for a long time. It's bound that
Disney
we're going to
has the Hyperion Theater. I mean, it's fair.
That is fair. But if there's more than two words in the title, Vince is probably going to mix one of them up for like the first month of the set. But we'll get there. By the time Vince gets it right, me and Brad are messing it up now as well, because we've heard Vince say it wrong so many times.
That is 100% accurate. I will just say, if you're going to D23 and you're going to get an extra one, hit us up. Let us know. We got folks that want those cards. But yeah. And then do I see this here? Andy, is this correct that we're going to our live correspondent in the field?
Yes.
Or a special announcement?
Yeah, I'm getting the signal now. Let's go to you, Brad.
Thank you, gentlemen. Sorry I couldn't be on the episode this week, but I am happy to be here now with a huge announcement from us at Rules of Villainy and partnering with Impact Gaming Center in Fairview Heights, Illinois. We are excited to bring you the Black Cauldron Cup in October. It's going to be a big 5K weekend, a whole Disney Lorcana filled weekend of events over there at Impact Gaming Center. And we're going to be streaming it right here on the Rules of Villainy channel, as well as the Impact Gaming Center Twitch channel. It is going to be a blast. It is a 5K tournament, 5K guaranteed, and then more prizing coming as more and more entrants come. It's going to be incredible. It's going to be a 2-day event, 3 if you count early check-in on Friday. And why else would you want to come on Friday? Well, Jeff was generous enough to give us a bunch of on-demand side events. We will have 8-person pod sealed tournaments. We will have draft, whatever you want to do. If we have the people to do it, to fire it, we're going to do that. And not only are we having a 5K on Saturday and the top cut on Sunday, we are also having a 1K second chance tournament on Sunday as well. And all of this is going to be streamed right here. We cannot wait to bring it to you. That is going to be the weekend of October 9th through 11th, the tournament being on the 10th, the Saturday the 10th, and finishing up on Sunday the 11th. Cannot wait to bring it to you. I hear rumors that the Horned King himself might actually be there. We will see if we can get him out of his lair to join us at this great event that we and Impact Gaming Center are putting together for you. So we hope you check that out. Please check a link in the description below. If you're wondering how to register, there is a system limitation on when you can pre-register for it. That will be 2 months out from the event. So somewhere around August 9th, August 10th, one of those 2 days, pre-registration will open up on the Impact Gaming Center website. And we will make sure through our socials and our podcasts, everywhere that you know us from, we will get you that information so you can check it out and you can come see us and play Disney Lorcana with us all weekend. Can't wait. And that's it for me. Hope you enjoy the rest of the Rules of Villainy podcast. Take it away, boys.
Wow, that's awesome news, Brad.
Oh my
I am
God!
so excited
Can you
for that.
believe it? That is so exciting. More details about the 5K event in October. And you can find those details in the link below. And we'll be talking about this more here shortly. And with that, let's get to our main segment. Heath, you wanna kick us off here? I hear about bread a lot. Is this like food? What are we talking about here?
It's getting close to dinner time. Don't start talking about bread. I love bread. All right. I'm assuming you're referring to how we rate cards in Limited. Yeah, so you'll have heard that a lot if you've kind of looked into anything around playing Limited and evaluating cards. You'll have heard of this term bread before. Right? This acronym, BREAD. It's been around much longer than our game has, and you'll have seen it representing different words in that acronym. But I'll kind of walk you through what it is. So you're going to your first pre-release, you're going to your first limited event, and you're trying to determine how on the heck do I start evaluating these cards. So we use bread as just kind of a shorthand to help us sift through 72 cards to try and determine what our best course of action is. So the B in bread typically stands for bombs. Now, we've been getting a lot of questions lately about what constitutes a bomb. So a bomb in Limited typically refers to a great card. I know that's relatively vague, so let me try and be a little bit more specific for you. Whether you trust content creators such as myself or anyone else, or make your own evaluations, for me, I usually say that a bomb is that top 6 to 8 cards in a set. Type of card that you don't give it a second look. You're not like, should I include this? As soon as you see it, you slam it down because you know that that's the type of card that you're going to want to be looking for. The type of card that just shifts the game on its own. As soon as it hits the board, it's a whole new game. Your opponent had the advantage. No. Now it's yours, or vice versa. So it's not necessarily just, a good value card or a good piece of removal or something like that. It's something that just dominates the board as soon as you play it. So that's what we mean by bomb. R is for removal. So speaking of removal, kind of the next priority in line, because it's so rare and limited, is good removal. That's why I love Attack of the Vine, and I'm so excited for it, is we finally got a good volume of decent removal in the set, which really makes for a healthy limited environment, because it makes sure that if your opponent drops that bomb, you might still have an answer in your deck. They don't just win the game on the spot. And we get into the E, and E typically in Lorcana we talk about evasives, right? Evasives, for the most part, are really hard to interact with in Limited. So especially if you've got a high lore questing evasive, they can be very challenging for your opponent. But even a big body evasive, we saw it in Pegasus last set, right, is going to be challenging with abandon into your board. And so, 6, 7, yeah. It's too late. That's dead.
Hey, we got one in this set.
So yeah, evasives, you're almost always going to want to prioritize. Now, I'm going to say this when we talk about the D in a second, but not all things are created equal. Don't just take something just because it says evasive on it, especially items that say give evasive. Some have been very good, some have been less so, but for the most part, you can rely on evasive being good. I'm going to get back to A in a second. We're going to go to D first, because A, I've tweaked quite a bit for myself, and it really is fundamental to how you build, especially your sealed deck. So D is pretty straightforward, is usually referring to card draw, right? Draw. Card draw in Limited is really powerful. We tend to end up running out of cards very quickly because we don't have a consistent deck with a lot of card draw that we've already built into it like we do in Constructed. So when only 3 cards in our deck say draw a card, we tend to run out of cards very quickly. So the more you can kind of push that time away, the later you can make it so that you run out of cards and you're living off the top of your deck, the better off you typically are. Now we're going to get into in a later part of this segment that, again, not all card draw is created equal, but for the most part, you can rely on card draw being a valuable asset in your limited pool. All right, let's get to the A. A, when we first started talking about bread and Lorcana, we talked about aggro, because it was coming from a different game, a game called Magic the Gathering, where you could aggressively kind of take out your opponent before they can do anything about it. Things are a little bit different in Lorcana. The aggro line doesn't typically play out as well. It's certainly feasible, but I started reflecting on what's maybe a more relevant thing to consider when you're trying to build your deck. And what I came across, and this is strictly me, I'm not going to put it on anyone else, is approach. What do I mean by that? Effectively, what is your deck trying to do? What's the approach that your deck is trying to take to the game? So when you're laying out your pool, your sealed pool, a lot of content creators, and rightfully so, are going to tell you to start by writing out your ink curve, 1 through 6+, right? And if you're just starting out, that's probably the way that you should do it. But if you've kind of gotten a little bit more comfortable with the game, what I'd like you to do instead is lay out your top 10 to 15 cards, those bombs into the pseudo bombs, right? Just the cards that you're always going to be mulliganing for, always wanting to draw into, never inking, always playing. Those cards, I want you to lay them out, and I want you to ask yourself, what do they do best? Are they more aggressive? Is it a lot of low-cost, high-lore characters? Is it more controlling, big, efficient bodies, 4-cost 5/5s? What is my deck doing best? Because if those are the cards you're always trying to play, you're never inking, you're always mulliganing for, well then, you should probably do what they do. Right? So when you're choosing between the rest of your deck, okay, I'm now trying to figure out my supporting role, right? The cards that I'm going to take that maybe have relatively equal value. They're all kind of mid-filler cards. When I'm deciding between them, try and decide on the ones that are going to support the strategy that your top cards are telling you they want to do. So that's what I mean by approach. So again, we've got bombs, we've got removal, we've got evasives, we've got card draw, and then approach. Once I've kind of factored all those things in, what is my deck telling me? What is my pool telling me that it's trying to do? Soapbox moment.
I think that's a great explanation, honestly. So we still can use the bread acronym. I was wondering if you were going to come up with a different word in there as we were going through. We kept the bread acronym. I think it's really good. I'll be honest, that's not how I play limited. That is a really good idea, and I'm going to try it because I've never done that before. For me, I play mostly sealed, so I will say that going into this, Heath is like a hardcore limited player. He plays on like pro mode. He's in ranked queues over here with draft. With draft, right?
There was fun.
He's winning the limited DLC for sure. I play on like casual mode. I play sealed, right? I'm not letting you touch my packs and mess with my cards or whatever. I'm keeping the ones that I open. So I do think a lot of our discussion will be mostly about sealed. You definitely have to check out all of Heath's videos because his are we've been on them before. He wrangles us and it's like, now draft is a little different, and I'm like, yeah, but I opened this and 10 other honey characters. Why can't I play that combo? They're all right in front of me ahead of time. So but with that said, I always organize everything by cost, and then my goal is not to try and find my best cards and then do what my best cards do. My plan is to make sure that every card in my deck is at least, some level of good, so that no matter what I'm doing, as long as I'm on curve, I'm basically always going to be playing something decent, right? And then when I do hit those big valuable cards, like that's a bonus, right? Like that's the extra coins in the block that you exploded with Mario. But but I'm gonna try that out. I'm gonna try that out with some help from your limited tier lists, which I'll watch on YouTube. I'm gonna rank some of my cards, and I'm gonna try and put at least a little bit of effort into how does my deck want to approach the game of Lorcana that we're about to play, and how can I find cards that fit that strategy? I like that.
Yeah. So that's not a bad way to approach it. Again, like if you approach it that way, you're probably going to have a reasonable deck. You do very well in sealed. That's not necessarily a bad way. What I want to challenge you on is sometimes, and I would argue probably more times than not, a cohesive deck that does one thing well will beat a pile of good cards or decent cards that are kind of disjointed, right? They don't know what they're trying to do. So this is where you might take a card that's a D, but it really supports your strategy over a C, because the difference between the power level of a C and a D is not particularly high. So if it is in service to this overall strategy, chances are you're going to do better in that space. So that's all I'm saying is it's really mostly going to affect your kind of bottom 10 cards or so, 10 to 15 cards. If you look at that top 10 to 15, you know this is what I'm always trying to do. Those bottom 10 to 15 cards, there's probably 20 to 25 that you're picking from, and that might change how you approach it. So I'll lay out those cards first, and then I'll get my kind of second layer, which is kind of the next 10 to 15 cards that are in that kind of C plus C territory that really support that. And now I've got at my 30 cards, right? And now as I'm layering in the filler, now it's like, okay, I'm just filling out my curve. I'm deciding between two cards that are pretty much equivalent, but one might support the strategy, the other might not. Right? So it's really just kind of 3 tiers of going about it. I just find when people put out all the cards in the full curve, the thing just becomes a mess. Everything gets drowned out, right? And it's sometimes hard to see what my deck's actually, or my pool is actually telling me in terms of what I'm going to do best. I had a theoretical deck that I played in my mind with Attack of the Vine Limited that sealed that was a pretty bad pool, and the curve basically ended at 4. But because I had such a cohesive, aggressive, and tempo deck in a set that is filled with late game bombs that should dominate the field, I somehow theoretically in my mind went 7-1. Because I had a plan, I had a game plan, and I started.
That's definitely.
I mean, I feel like that's a really good way to approach, especially like in formats when like you don't get the cards you're looking for, right? You feel like you've got cards that are like, what am I gonna do? I've opened 21 drops across all these packs, which is happened, especially in the last set we had. And so you're like, how do I make this cohesive? How can I do that? And I'm really interested to try this approach myself, because I've always kind of approached it from the way like the early, like with Knive, who had those early videos on Lorcana to like lay out your stuff by cost, and that's kind of how I've always approached Limited. And so I really like this. I guess one question I have for you on Limited a little bit, this is more about the difference between sealed and draft. Now that Lorcana has really honed in on the rules of draft by lowering the amount of required cards for draft, have you found that draft has become a little bit more consistent as a result, because you don't have to include those extra 5 cards?
Yeah. Consistent, I think, without a shadow of a doubt. The question that I'm more interested in is that a good
removing
thing?
5 cards?
One of the things consistency. One of the things I love about Limited is its lack of consistency, which is to say, the problem I have with Constructed is it's very much about consistency. It's about lines. It's about, I've got 4 of everything, and it's just running back lines again and again and again to try and find the perfect formula for the deck. And that is a beautiful thing in and of itself. That's a beautiful thing about Constructed. But what I love about Limited is I've got access to 207 cards. Obviously, I've got my limited pool, but my opponent doesn't know which of the 207 cards I've got. I don't know which of the 207 cards they've got. They're almost all singulars, so I don't know what's coming off the top of my deck in what order. It's this puzzle you constantly have to solve. And I feel like consistency almost offsets skill in a way, which is to say skill in deck building, skill in solving that puzzle, in how do my filler cards potentially beat your bomb, is something that I appreciate about Limited. So I think making it more consistent, I have a problem with that. In fact, I would love to get to a place where we have color restrictions in Limited to offset that consistency, so that now I'm forced to make harder decisions. I can't say, because it's all just theory crafting at this point. But I think that probably sweet spot is going to be 3 or 4. I think Magic has done something interesting recently where they've initiated pick 2 draft, which is you pick 2 cards at a time. It allows it to go quicker. So that might allow us to do more packs in draft, right? The problem with draft is it takes too bloody long. And fair enough. So if we did a pick 2, we could maybe even do 6 packs, because it's a lot faster to pick 2 cards from 1 pack than it is to pick 2 individual cards from 2 packs. So probably 5 is the sweet spot in terms of packs if we did a pick 2 format. But it's just the more cards that we can imbue in it. If I'm picking cards from the pack, I could pick less colors in 5 or 6 packs than you could possibly do in sealed, because in sealed there's just not enough options when everything's out there. You're statistically going to get a relatively even distribution of the 6 colors. So in draft, one thing I love about Magic Draft is you have to find your lane. What are the open colors? That's not a thing in Limited Lorcana. You take the best card. Now, I still love Draft because what is the best card is a lot more interesting question than I think most people give it credit for. Again, there's those bombs, which are just undoubtedly. But as soon as we drop down from that bomb level, is just what is the best card is significantly different. And there's a lot of skill expression there. But still, I would love it to go one layer further, which is not only do I have to decide what the best card is, but I have to decide between a few different colors. I think that would also allow for more synergies, because if I'm trying, go back to Wilds Unknown, because I think toys and supers were the most viable synergies we've had to date. Even so, it just wasn't enough of them. But now imagine there's only 3 colors that are the toy colors, and I'm in those colors, and maybe my opponents around me aren't. I'm getting fed more toys. I can build the toys deck much more consistently than I could if everyone was just grabbing, random cards or every color, right? So we'll leave that at draft. I know you want to focus on sealed, and rightfully so. That's what most people's pre-release are going to be. But
no, I appreciate
another
it.
soapbox moment in terms of draft.
That makes a lot of sense too. I mean, it kind of sounds like it boils down to like a skill difference, right? That's one of the reasons I really enjoyed playing decks like Blurple and Ruby Amethyst, because in Constructed, they were the consistent decks, and it meant that the way that I win is not by high rolling my opponent and getting lucky or altering well and getting the 4 or 5 card combo and just blowing them out, but it was by using my skill, to say, okay, I know how to navigate this game better than you. My cards are just going to be basic, and that almost kind of goes back to my game plan in sealed, is that I'm like, as long as I have decent cards, I'm hoping that I can just sort of outskill my opponent and win the match, as opposed to, Heath, who's on a different level and playing people who, he's got the more thought that sort of goes into it, which I'm gonna try and get to that point. My problem with draft is also I end up not having enough good cards, right? So like I'm just trying to take good cards, and other people do strategies like he says, and then I get beat by those decks because they have a cohesive strategy and they're playing into it, and they the draft I played at the DLC, Vince judged it. I didn't realize it was single elimination. Yeah, the first game, the person I was playing against had like a jersey on. It said like Pro Drafters Lorcana, .com, and I'm like, okay, Heath over here. Like I'm getting hustled for sure.
How come I haven't heard of
and
this?
they like Milo thatched me, and like they just had like control card. They were just playing this crazy game. They drew like a million cards. They did like this combo, and they Heath will enjoy this. They did the who was it? Bruno, that when you healed, you played. It was a develop the brain basically, and so they just like kept being able to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, every time I'd be like, you're not going to get me this time. They would still get me, and they're just doing like this crazy combo. And I'm just like, bro, I just tried to take the best cards I could out of every pack. Like, well, I can't do this. So I need to take away that skill of them picking the cards, and like, you get your 6 packs. Okay, Heath, if they're terrible, well, now I have a chance. Okay. That's how it works. All right. That's just how it works. I get lucky and I have a chance now.
That's another reason I like draft, is it mitigates the luck factor, right? If I open a bad pack, I only have to take 1 and I get to pass it away. If I open a great pack, I only get to take 1 and I have to pass it away.
One day I'll graduate to the ranked queues of draft. I'm sure.
Well, I mean, I think first off, you just need to go to Heath's Mind Palace to play your draft out when your sealed rounds out. But let's get into Attack of the Vine specific drafting stuff. So I think probably like we just rerun all of Heath's videos right now, ranking them starting at
this is a reaction video. Did you know that, Heath? We're actually just gonna watch your videos now for the next
8-hour
and react to them. This video is really good, but who's that guy?
Yeah. I hope we're watching
this is a great video, but who's that Canadian guy talking all the time? Sheesh.
No, I think let's talk though about like what the highlights here, right? Like you're sitting down, you're like I'm ready to go, but crap, now I forgot. I'm gonna watch this YouTube video of these three dudes speaking at 6x speed while I'm building this deck. So at like one ink, what are we looking for here? Like, what do we thinking our strategies are?
So quite frankly, again, what is so we're back to sealed. I've opened my sealed pool. I've laid out my best cards. What are they trying
skip
to do?
them all?
If they're trying to go, I mean, for the most part, but there's enough aggro and tempo lines in this set. Quite frankly, I think that there's 4 viable strategies in this set for limited, which is the most that we've ever had. Normally it's aggro and control and that's it. I think there's an aggro line, which is all gas, no brakes. There's a tempo line, which is I'm mostly questing, but I do want to still interact with your board a little bit. There is a mid-range line, which is I'm trying to do both. And then there's the hard control line, which is I know I've got all the late game bombs. I'm just trying to survive there, exhaust you of resources, and then just quest over 2 turns for the win. And I think those are all viable. So let's start at the 1 drop, because kind of my message this whole week has been create that game plan and then stick to it. So it starts even at the 1 and 2 drops in the early game. It is, if I'm trying to go more aggro route or a tempo route, what are the cards that are going to benefit that? So I try to focus mostly on common and uncommon. So one of your best ones is going to be Dash Par. There's a 1/1 evasive for 1. And this set has 3 common and uncommon evasives in the set. 2 of them are 1/1s, and 1 of them's a 4 cost. So there's not a lot that's rumbling with your 1 cost. There's a distinct possibility that it's questing for many turns on end. So it's a great start to an aggro line. It also happened to have a great shift target in this set for what it's worth. And then if we want to dip into rare, there's a Boo, which is a 1-drop, which you're going to sit on the board for a while, but is eventually going to quest for 3, because as soon as you have 5 ink, it quests for 3. It's an 0-3. It quests for 3 on 5. You're only going to quest once, but maybe if you've got a good, board state, or you're going more aggressive, more tempo,
that Boo quest turn 1.
Right?
You cheat out. If you're going on the play, you cheat out that quest from the Boo, and then leave it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you effectively get
good late game too.
And if you're really lucky, there's a 4-drop, which we'll get into in a little bit. A 4-drop 4/3 Antonio that heals your character, and if it heals, you ramp 1. So that's a great combination with that cheeky, because they're going to run into the Boo if they can. So if they put 1 or 2 damage on it, it's like thank you. And then there's just a bevy of 2/2s. 1 cost 2/2s in this set that can serve both purposes. If you're trying to go more aggro or tempo, you need a 1-drop. So you need to probably have 5 or 6 1-drops. So even if they're replaceable, throw them in there. There's also a lot of 2-drops that have 2 willpower, so they're perfectly fine to kind of quest for a couple turns before they get stalled. And there's also quite a few shift lines that rely on the 1-drop 2/2s. So if you're even a late game, right, there's some shift lines that might benefit from it. If you're a late game deck, mid-range or control, you still probably want a small handful of those 1-cost 2/2s in your deck, because they can stabilize the board early. But if you're on the draw and you're a late game deck and your opponent goes turn 1 ink pass, just ink the 1-drop. Don't play it out, because
always ink the 1-drop.
Just holding off, right? I will say there's 1 card in this set that I still don't really like, but I feel like it's probably going to get some people value. It's just not my playstyle, which is Powhatan Staff. This is not the Powhatan we're looking for, gentlemen. I know we're big fans of Powhatan. Gee, Pow in this place, especially for limited. But I don't think I like it at all. but I wouldn't necessarily fault you for playing it in
so
in the right deck.
for
So
me,
that's 1-drops.
I hate 1-drops. You all know that by now. I love the scenario that Heath is talking about. I want my opponent to go first, ink, and pass, and then I can do the same. Thank you for allowing this in the game. If I'm going first, though, I can ink and pass too. I can ink and pass my 1-drop as well, because if they play their 1-drop, I'm going to be able to, threaten it with my 2-drop. But for me, I agree. Dash, boo. You broke my smolder. I feel like it's uninkable, but I mean, like, come on, it's a dock, right? Like, you just have to have it.
Yeah.
Well,
I think as a one of, I like it.
That's fair, because if you get stuck with 2, it's not great. But I mean, if you get stuck with this in your hand, quote unquote, stuck, like, you just hold this until you run out, and then you play it for 1 ink is really nice.
Yeah, but it's still not like amazing. Like, Doc had a body attach, so you got to quest with it, especially since your opponent's probably distracted with other things. So the Doc probably quests a couple of times because they got too much else to worry about. So this is not Doc, but it's still effectively go up 1 card for 1.
If it's the last card in your hand. If it's the last card in your hand, yeah.
Which is fine. Yeah, but if it's the last card in your hand, you're down 1 card for playing it, you're up 2 cards, so you're up 1 card for the cost of 1 ink. That's great, but it does require setting up. It is uninkable, but the uninkable threat in this set isn't nearly as big. So yes, I would rate the first one as like a C+. Imminently playable, but I'm not sure I'm playing the second one unless I've got a very aggressive deck and I can run it out. And if I get stuck with 2 and I've got to discard 1, it's not the end of the world for how much value I'm going to get out of it other games. So if I'm like high aggro, I would probably play 2. But even a tempo and above.
All right. Well, I'd be remiss if we didn't at least mention Potato. They got a potato in the game.
It got its own tier in Heath's
video.
It
did. It get its own tier,
which was above S, right? Like it was like at the top, like just above all the other ones, right?
Mad Drafter recommended. Always.
All right, moving on to the next card. So this is Mad Drafter approved. If you guys realize,
no, don't play this. Don't play this.
Do not mistake my silence for consent.
I think you actually said it right. If you want to play it for the lulz, do it. But otherwise, it's not good for the game.
For sure. Yeah. If that brings you joy, we could also, give an honorable mention to Besties Assemble. I think some people might rate it too highly, but it's a fine use of like, I've got an extra ink, right? I'll ink it early if I've got a great curve. If I've got 1 through 5 and I'm confident in that 1 through 5, I'm fine to ink it. But if there's any point where I miss a perfect curve and I've got 1 spare ink, absolutely fine.
Go ahead, Vince.
Go on, Andy.
I was gonna say I disagree on Besties Assemble. I think Besties Assemble is arguably, for me and my play style, the best 1-drop that could exist, because I am spending my turn 1 not playing a 1-drop, because that's a bad idea in my opinion, but instead I'm looking through my deck for a better 2 through 10 drop, so like
one caveat I will say to just be cautious of, because removal is so hard to come by in this set, I'm usually one, if you've watched my videos, I don't preach about being scared of what's on the top of my deck, random, right? But to some degree, if you don't need to, like, hey, I've got a great 2 through 5, and I don't really have any shift lines that I'm looking for, whatever the case may be, right? I've just got a kind of clean deck, and I've got a clean curve ahead of me. There's something to be said for not necessarily taking that risk unnecessarily, but I still wouldn't play scared. I would do the same. I would play it on 1, but just be mindful of that if you're, in a situation where I'm like, I need the removal on the top of my deck.
If the thing you need is not a character, this is not the card for you. I agree with that, but and I think, I think that's what separates, the good Lorcana players from the great Lorcana players, is that recognizing that sort of in the situation where you're like, look, like you said, I do have a good curve. The only cards I really would love to add to my hand right now are not characters. So let's just ink this and move on. The only other 1-drop I wanted to bring up was Petrify. 1 cost uninkable. I don't love that it's uninkable, but exert chosen opposing character. I have not, done as much theory crafting into this set, but limited very often becomes a standoff, right? Like a my wall versus your wall. There's just more and more being able to exert an opposing character can be a very valuable tool.
What you're exerting has to be of such high value that it's worth discarding a card for it. And having an uninkable card in your deck that needs that situation to be useful. So I think you're just
if it was
sabotaging
inkable,
your
would you
deck
play it?
by playing it, frankly. And to be very transparent, there are several other players that play limited often enough. Shout out to Team Snuggly Duckling Joe that like it. Colors Law likes it. So for the people that I've talked to so far, you could argue I'm in the minority, but I firmly am.
It is kind of the
not including
worst
that in my deck.
card with this effect that we've seen, right? Like well, yeah. I'm not saying ever, but I've like seen in a while. Like you think about, we've had things like Elsa, the Fifth Spirit. We've had things like Isis, and we've also have actions as well that put cards back into your hand. So
I also think it's a bit of a crutch. If you're finding yourself often in board stalls, you need to be asking yourself, what could I have done proactively to avoid this, or what could I do to break it? Which is to say, there's plenty of times where I'll be questing with a character that I know will get a favorable challenge from my opponent, but I've kind of calculated that they have one favorable challenge, but I can quest with 3 characters where 2 of them they don't, and I've got a relatively disposable character I can crack back to their favorable challenge, and it will then open things up, and I'm better positioned in that 2 turns from now state than they are. So this is where I think you need to be challenging yourself more as a player, not challenging yourself as a player. If you keep finding yourself in these board stalls, there are absolutely ways out of them. Trust me, there's times where I'm in a board stall, I'm like, there's no way out of this. We're literally getting to the point of that critical mass who can quest out and basically win in 1.5 turns. But it is few and far between where I find myself in that position, so I know there are ways out of it. It's hard to communicate that, but just keep trying to assess how could I've kind of been more proactive about not getting to this state, and now that I'm in it, what can I do with maybe 1 or 2, bait quests or something like that to kind of get myself out of it? What does the turn look like 2 turns from now?
All right, if I do 2 cost.
Yeah,
we spent a lot of time on 1. We're
is my least favorite cost of character as well. In 2 cost, we see the first of a number of cards that we're going to see in this set that basically both players draw. So the first one is this Miriam Mendelssohn from Turning Red. 2 cost, 1/3. When you play this character, each player draws a card. I think there's another statted one. Each player draws a card at like 4 costs. There's a song at 3 costs that each player draws 2 cards. What are your thoughts on both of us drawing?
Yeah, so we'll have to skip ahead because the most egregious of them is at 3, but we'll start with talking about 2. We'll start by talking about Miriam here. So let me ask you this before we get into the card drawing. Would you play a 2 cost 1/3 in this set?
No, definitely not.
No other abilities. Vanilla 2 cost 1/3. Okay. So you're each drawing a card, so you're at parity there.
That's fair.
So you're playing
but what if my cards are better than their cards?
Now you're supposing that the top of your deck is friendlier to you than your opponent. You're assuming that you know what's in your opponent's deck. They might have better cards than you do, right? So you're even on information there. If you knew the deck list of your opponent versus your deck list, yeah, you could make that assessment of whose deck is better. What's the likelihood of drawing it? You don't have that information. So with that lack of information, they are equivalent in value, but you're left with a 2 cost 1/3. As well, they get to leverage that card first if you're playing this on curve. Obviously, if it's late game and you top deck this and you play it and still have 4 ink and draw a 4-drop, you get to play it first. That's different. But on curve, they get to utilize that card first. So she's already bad enough. A Jasmine, which is a 4-cost, is at least a 3/4 2-lower body, which I do not love that as a vanilla stat line, but that's a better vanilla stat line than a 2-cost 1/3. So at least we're slightly better in body there. Jasmine I could see as a fine, if not good, kind of top end almost for an aggro deck, right? I just need kind of that last little bit of gas. My opponent's still got 3 or 4 cards in hand. I'm going to benefit more from the extra card than they will. Maybe you've got an argument there. The most egregious
if
is
I
the
don't
song.
have, if I didn't have
what's
you,
the song again? Yeah. So you each have 2 cards. Again, we're at parity there. Except I've played 3 ink and or sung with a character, which I could have used for challenging or questing. So let's say questing. I've paid a lore at the minimum, and I'm down a card to draw us both 2 cards. So they're at +2 cards. I'm at +1 because my song went away and I got 2 cards. So they're at +2. I'm at +1, and I had the cost to play it, and there's nobody left behind. So that is the most egregious. If you play that, your opponent should thank you. Shake your hand and say thank you very much.
That makes sense. I think that's a fair assessment here. And because you cannot control your deck list as much as you could in maybe Core Constructed, where you knew that your 2 cards were going to be 1-drop high questers that you're just going to slam to the board and you don't care. And okay, so you don't have those considerations into play. I think that makes
so what do you have in consideration in the 2-drop slot?
At 2-drop? Oh, tons. So I'm a big fan of efficient bodies. So we got a 2-cost 3/3 in Sapphire. We got a 2-cost 3/2 resist 1 in Steel and Violet. And
this is
Hasagawa. Hasagawa, thank you. Yeah, let's focus on Violet because she's the better of the 2. Barring the one action in this set that puts 2 damage counters on, right? Other than that, it is going to play out better than a 2-cost 3/3. And she happens to have a really great shift line. Again, much like Dash in the 8-cost team up. So between those 2 things, I just love really efficient bodies. So I'm a big fan of that. One that I think is kind of dubious and debatable is Mike.
Mike Wazowski.
Here, I can put him up. So Mike is one that, in my mind palace of playing games, has played out silly good in an aggro or tempo build. Especially like 2-drop Mike on the play into 3-drop Woody, which we'll go over in terms of good 3-drops in a second, but it affects your opponent's board and keeps them from removing Mike. Into there's a bevy of 4-cost tempo cards. All of these things combine to be a really effective for aggro and tempo. However, if you're a late game deck, you shouldn't play this under any stretch of the imagination. So that's where a card really depends on laying those top cards out and deciding what deck I'm playing, because a card like Mike is very polarizing between the 2. He feels like the best card that I want in my deck in an aggro or tempo build, and the last card that I want.
It's essentially the same effect as Miriam, right? Because for the most part, most people are playing mostly characters. So this Mike Wazowski is pay 2 for a 0/4 that quest for 1. Both players draw a card, right?
Yep.
Sure,
to an extent, except unlike Miriam, but unlike Miriam, which definitely draws your opponents a card, you've built your deck. You have not built your opponent's deck, and you've built your deck with Mike in mind. You're a aggro or tempo deck, and a tempo deck might have a couple of actions in it. But an aggro deck is probably almost going to be exclusively characters. So you're always drawing a card. You haven't built your opponent's deck. Maybe they're a control deck that has several actions in there. Maybe they're not listening to Heath's advice and playing locations. Maybe they're playing items, right? So you're probably still drawing your opponent a card 85-90% of the time. But again, you've built your deck, you haven't built your opponents. And regardless, if you're in that aggro tempo deck, again, in these Mind Palace games, my opponent, in theory, has like 6 or 7 cards at the end of the game. Great. If you can't do anything with them because I've out-tempoed you so thoroughly, that's a different situation. Whereas just playing Miriam on 2 into we just kind of play out the rest of the game normally,
Okay.
That's a much
So
worse situation.
I feel like Pocahontas is another card that I have listed here is probably very similar to Mike Wazowski in that if you are doing an aggro strategy, this card may be helpful to you. You know, it's a 2-cost, 2/3 quest for 1.
Yeah, that
Except
I
the
kind of
one-drops are
agree with
so
that. Like,
bad.
Another character is another
Even in an
character,
aggro
right?
build,
just-
the one-drops are so bad.
I just feel like the amount of
Yeah.
one drops you would have to play to get use out of this is
Yeah.
you know,
Fair.
pretty.
You have a one-drop on
I'll
one
just
and
say this.
still have a one-drop on 2.
I say this
Yeah.
from the fact that I've been actually playing the Amber Emerald Pocahontas shift deck, like testing that out. And when I play this card,
Yeah.
I find
In your
myself
mind palace.
that I find myself
with
this
proxies, right?
I find myself with this
In
card.
person with
I'll
proxies.
play it and I don't have a one drop because I've already played it on 1. And I'm like, well, I didn't get the value out of that free one drop.
In a deck that has a lot of one drops in it because you
exactly.
built the deck
And
for
so
that. Yeah. That being said, Pocahontas is still fine. Like, I think that even though it's getting less exciting by the day, Inkable 2-cost 2/3 and limited is still fine. Especially if you're on more of an aggro build. So in fact, I'd almost rather a 2-cost 2/3 than a 2-cost 2/2 lore for the early game. In the late game, if I'm top decking, of course I want anything
Certainly.
quest for 2. But in the early game, I think that Pocahontas is probably going to survive for even 1 turn longer. So she's probably getting the same amount of lore and maybe distracts my opponent's character.
I feel a
twice
card some folks
versus
might be
once.
tempted by is this Kevin.
Oh, yes. Tempted, yes. And again, your opponent should be thanking you if you play it. Kevin, I love Kevin, but she is the worst.
Really? Thinks I mean, like
hot
what it basically is you're drawing a 2-cost 1/3
Yeah.
that quests for 3 every other turn.
Correct. However, then you're not developing your board
That's
much
fair.
at all past turn 4. I say that there's a lot of times. So I mentioned being disjointed, right? I've got a lot of early aggro, but I can't really lean into it. I always say that's a great way to get to 10, but a terrible way to get to 20. Kevin's more like a great way to get to 15, but a terrible way to get to 20. Because you're going to be questing for a lot every other turn. However, my opponent's board's building up and you've never interacted with it, pretty much. So there comes a turn very quickly where you get to 15, 16, and I get to 12, and then you draw Kevin and you play Kevin, and then I get to 24, because my board's so wide at that point. So Kevin is absolutely a detriment to any strategy.
I don't know. The way I view this card in some ways, although I think you just sold it as one of the best pack rush cards in the game, is
for sure
is that you play it, you quest for 3, you put it back on the top of your deck, you draw it the next turn, and you just ink it, and you play your next card.
That's interesting, yeah.
Which
missed
is
a draw.
fine, but it's not like, so there's some cards like Will o' the Wisp, where it's like I've inked a couple times, they get it back to my hand, and I get to ink it. Great, but I'm not down a card. I'm down a card because of Kevin. So, right, the card that I would have drawn, I draw Kevin instead.
That's fair.
So it's really just 2 ink for 3 lore, which isn't bad. I just mentioned Boo. I'm perfectly fine paying 1 ink for probably 3 lore. But the difference is, it's not just 3 lore, it's actually more like 4 lore. Because if you think about the transaction, which is my opponent has to challenge this to remove it, a thing that they could have quested instead, whereas Kevin just removes itself from the equation, so my opponent doesn't even have to deal with it. So yeah, and there's also, it's a minor thing, but there's the power of knowing what's on the top of your opponent's deck. They quest with Kevin and Kevin's on the top, and I'm like, if I do this, what's my opponent gonna draw that's going to maybe mess up that plan? Whereas I know Kevin's on the top of your deck, it's like, turn everything sideways. There's
that's a really fair point.
So to that extent, though, like you said, knowing what's on the top of your opponent's deck is important. So would you say that potentially you should be always watching the top of your opponent's deck and play the 2-cost 2/3 Raws, that always watching with the ability always each opponent plays the top card of their deck face up. I mean, this is an improvement over the location in Merlin's cottage. Not to mention, this is a character with a body. You don't have to turn it sideways, and it's only your opponent. It's not even you. So I mean, like, you just get to see the next card they're about to get. That's good. That's good information, right?
Yeah, and again, I mentioned a 2-cost 2/3 inkable is fine. Roz is barely, but playable. However, it's only going to survive for a couple turns, so you get a couple pieces of information. And there's a distinct chance that if it's a bad card, they've inked it, and if it's a good card, they've played it. So you're not necessarily getting a ton of information. Why I mention, what's going on the top of your opponent's deck is because if it's Kevin, that
it
very
could
much
be Kevin, and you know if you had a Roz on the board.
But I'm sick. But Roz is also good to know my opponent's getting a good card that would completely mess up my plans. Hey, what I plan to do, what's on the top of their deck is going to wreck me if I do it. That's useful information too. It's just I think people put too much value on that information. It's good to have. It will help you navigate the game a little bit better. But I certainly wouldn't be putting Roz in over a significantly better card. I would be playing her as she is, which is, hey, it's a barely playable 2-cost 2/3. I get a small bit of extra value out of it.
Before we go on, I do want to talk about one last 2-drop here, which is the Morph.
Yes.
This
is one of Heath's top.
Yes.
2-drops.
I'm so excited for Morph.
Well, I'll be honest.
Yes.
I also know that Heath is not a big fan of shifting in limited, and I wonder if this set has changed your mind on shifting, because there is a lot of good shift options in this set, and there are also a lot of decent shift targets as well.
Yes and no, which is to say, I think the perfect example of why I don't like shift is a card like Darkwing and Launchpad. It's a 7-cost 5/7/2 lore with
Calhoun
ward,
effect,
I think, and you gain 2 lore when you challenge and banish a character. However, I'm not getting any other intrinsic value other than the lore out of it. So I'm going down 2 cards to presumably get a decent challenge out of my opponent, but then they can run something insignificant back in, which means, yes, we've traded 2 cards for 2 cards in theory. I've gotten a couple lore out of it, so I'm up on that transaction, but I'm not up so much that it's worth having this as a 7-drop in my deck, versus a card like Maleficent and Diablo, where it's great on 7 on its own, but also good as a shift target. That's what I want to see, where much like synergies, when we talk about like the Vinelings or honey characters, I want cards that I'm happy to play in a vacuum. I don't need anything else to interact with them. They just get better if I can, interact with them. So in this case, shift. So cards like Dashpar and Violet, they're a little bit more polarizing because they're not good on their own, but they're very good when you shift them. Mal and Diablo, that you get great value shifting them. Omnidroid, which is, if you can get to 8, is fine on its own, but is obviously a heck of a lot better shifting it. So there's a lot of cards that get value. Sully and Boo, because the cards will eventually get replayed. So there's a lot of cards where you're mitigating that loss of a card that normally came with shift. I hated shift because it was basically like saying discard a card to play this. I get to bring it out sooner, I get to bring it out dry, but I'm losing a card by doing it. So I have to get pretty good value out of that transaction in order to want to do that. They've mitigated that. But Morph is the key here, because now I've got a bunch of characters that I want to shift that, hey, maybe I have 2, 1 Dash and 1 Violet in my deck, along with Dash and Violet shift line, the team up. But I've also got Morph. So it's like that one thing where I can use Morph for them, or maybe I can use Morph for Mal and Diablo that I also have in my deck. And I've got 1, Diablo in my deck. So Morph just allows us to kind of cover our bases with several shift at one time, where we effectively have an additional shift target for each one of those characters. If I've got 3 shifters in my deck, but I've only got 2 of each of the shift targets, well, I've effectively got a third of all of them by having 1 more.
Let's move on to, well, we got, people are listening. They're drafted currently while listening to this. So we got a speed run now. 3 4s. Let's do them together.
The 3 costs?
Yeah. Okay. So this is where the mid game we talked about the early game kind of setting up your strategy. Whether I'm going aggro, tempo, mid-range, or control, they've set up your strategy. Now we're into the mid-game. We got to, make sure we're staying consistent with that strategy. Again, if I'm doing disjointed things, I'm going aggro early and then trying to overcorrect into control. If I don't have a really consistent mid-range deck, it might be hard to balance that. So this is where we've got to make sure we're supporting the strategy that we've employed up to this point. So regardless of where you go, what you're going to value might be a little bit differently. So you might value a card like Splody Head, which I don't love at all, but a 3-cost 3/3/2 lore in your aggro deck, higher than a card that I'm going to value more in the type of decks that I like to play, which is Buzz Lightyear. We got a 3-cost 4/4. It can't get evasive, but that's
agreed.
Irrelevant other than 2 cards in this set. One of them is great, one of them is terrible, so
Stats.
I'll take it because it's just a super efficient body, right? So stats can be really powerful. That's typically the way I like to go. But again, if you've got an aggressive deck, you might value it a little bit more. I still think stats are valuable in like your 3 and 4 drops because they could just quest easier. So I might only be questing for 1 with Buzz, but my opponent might not have anything to challenge back into, so I can keep questing for 1. Whereas Splody Head, they might have a 3/4 that can run into it and take it out after the 1 quest. So there's value to both of them in the deck, but it's just a matter of kind of deciding what works well for your deck. There is a couple of, I think they're both commons. Yes, a couple of commons in this set, which are absurd at 3-drop if you're patient. Which is to say there is Sully and there is the Omnidroid. Let's go with Omnidroid. That effectively are 3-cost 6/3s. You've got Omnidroid is right away, but it has the hoop of it's only when it's undamaged. And Sully, you got to wait a little bit. It's when you have 5 ink. But both of them are effectively 3-cost 6/3s if you're smart about how you play it. So you just wait a couple turns, and this will clear any 5/6 drop pretty much to a point. So great value on those. They're not going to be as good early game because your opponent's going to have 2-cost 3/2s. But if you can hold them, if you've got a good stable first 2 turns, if you're trying to play to the late game, and then all of a sudden you're threatening with a 3-drop that can trade for their 5 or 6 drop, meanwhile yours get to go on about their business, that can play out very well.
No, I mean those are great. I have those both on my list. Hamster Veal, the 3/4 alert. I mean, alert is good. I think the bear.
Yeah. We mentioned how few evasives there are in this set. So there's going to be less things for it to interact with, but Dr. Hamster Veal is going to be so critical to have in case.
Absolutely.
This is actually like, I think one of the only it's alert, but the only character that can challenge that dash par we talked about of the 1-drop without just trading into it. Yeah.
Yeah, before
turn
wild.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's going to quest for so many turns.
Crazy. I mean, there's other good cards I have on here. Feel free to interject if you think these are actually bad cards. But the bear, I think, is pretty decent. 3-cost 2/5. While this character has damage, he gets +3. Sully.
He's played out a little bit less than I'd like him to, just because it's hard to get damage on for anything that's relevant, and your opponent's not going to give up their 3 too easily.
He's kind of free though, right?
So it's going to be
like you free questing.
Yeah, but again, there's you've got Omnidroid here, which takes him out and survives to tell the tale before he ever gets that bump on damage. So he's fine. I still think he's playable, but I had him higher than I think I would.
That's fair. That's something I was going to bring up later in the episode, and maybe still will. But you should. I want to see the Mad Drafters tier lists after they've played a set or a pre-release of. I want to, and then. Yeah, and then I want to write in the comments about how right or wrong you were. I want to be able to say like, oh wow, you put this at A tier now, huh? Wow, it was D tier earlier. That's crazy. That's crazy.
I told you Source of the Vine was amazing.
But the only real card I want to get your opinion on here, and it's kind of because I'm on the fence here about it, is this Todd card. It's a 3-cost 1/2, which absolutely is abysmal when it comes to stats. But It is it's the what is it? Strike a good match. It's strike a good match on a body, which frankly, draw 2, discard 1 is not at all a bad, effect in limited or in Lorcana in general. Are you, where do you put this?
Yeah, I like it.
Okay.
I've got it like high C because we've had the 3-cost 2/2s and 3-cost 1/3s that drew a card recently, and those bodies have been relatively irrelevant as well themselves. So being a 1/2 isn't much better. Basically, think of it as 1 lore plus this effect, right? It's like 1 lore. Well, again, we said the transaction is 2 because I'm distracting my opponent's character challenging into it, right? So 2 lore differential plus this effect. And drawing 2 and discarding 1 is certainly a lot better than just drawing 1 outright. It's not like, I shouldn't say a lot better. It's not like substantially better, but it's enough better that you should definitely value that over just drawing.
You're fine trading that 1 willpower for drawing that extra card and then discarding 1. Yeah, I like it.
All right,
awesome.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it's again, it depends, right? If your opponent's putting out really, aggressive bodies and you play this on 3, you've probably fallen too far behind. This is going to be a problem. But if your opponent's kind of stagnant and they're playing for the late game and you're playing for the late game, this might be the perfect 3-drop.
Yes.
We also forgot to mention Woody. He's just amazing at interacting both aggro and control. Aggro, I'm keeping your challenger away from me. Control, I'm forcing you to turn your weakest character sideways or the one that I'm most keen to remove, right? So for both of those reasons, Woody
certainly helps break that
3-drop
board state stale we talked about earlier.
The must quest if able is definitely it's a somewhat new ability or text in cards that but I think it is
since Whispers
underrated for sure. It is a powerful great ability.
It's a great ability. So you mentioned, we want to keep going into 4-drops here, Vince. So again, we're still at this point. We're not into the end game yet. We're in the mid game where we're trying to continue to lean into our strategy here. For the aggro deck, this might be where your curve ends. Maybe you've got 1 5-drop in there. You probably shouldn't go above that. So obviously the obvious one is Genie. 4-drop 3/3 2 lore evasive. That's a great curve topper. Hopefully that kind of goes without saying. There's other ones that are going to do you well. There's one that I kind of want to caution against, which is I don't love Megavolt. I think if you've got a super aggro deck and you're kind of emptying your hand by turn 5, then maybe it's early enough that your opponent can't interact with it easily. But we've already established we've got a 3-cost 6/3 Omnidroid that would eat Megavolt for breakfast at common. And by the time your opponent quests with this, Sully's also online. So I don't know that I love it particularly well. Launchpad is one that we should address because it's kind of a necessity. I do not love its stat line relative to its cost. My alert characters, I'm wanting to challenge my opponent's evasives with. So why do I care that it's got 2 lore? I'll still take it, but I much rather Dr. Hamstervale over Launchpad, but I think you have to include him just based on necessity because there's so little to interact. If your opponent drops a Genie, you're going to feel real bad if you cut this out of your deck.
My strategy, as everyone knows, top value characters. We're going for great value. We're going the Walmart special over here. We want great value characters. The Irate Chef, 4-cost 5/5, quest for 1. I mean, like stats. What more do we want than those stats? Yes. Shout out to Chip from the ROV comp team.
Yeah.
He is our Irate Chef. But
and this rumbles with everything up through a couple of 6-drops. There's a couple 6-drops that'll trump this, but most of the cards in the set this rumbles with at 4-cost. Again, even if you're an aggro deck, you're just going to be able to quest with abandon because your opponent's going to have to run 2 characters into this for the most part, unless they have a chef of their own.
And they're busy running their characters into your more aggressive questers for sure, likely. I also want to shout out Todd and Copper. It's a shift, but even still, 4-cost 3/3 quest for 2. It is a Genie. It's Genie, right? That you could get out earlier.
It's Genie.
Tigger, 5/4 Reckless.
I probably wouldn't.
Don't love that it's reckless, but I do love that basically it has the like challenge until it's gone, as long as it's banishing stuff, which at 5/4 it probably is, and you can just continue to ready itself. And then challenge again is I think a great ability.
So kind of a budget scar, if you will.
Yeah, like a budget scar. We have, I believe, our first real like direct removal in Red Alert. We've had some damage spells that we haven't talked about at like 2 cost.
Red Alert is actually something I want to talk about just a little bit of a second here.
Yeah. Do you guys know the stats on how many characters with 3 strength or less?
It is 40. It's 67%.
Yeah, it's 104 out of 157.
Like 67%, basically.
150 something.
Oh, so Red Alert's good then. It's going to remove.
So,
you still have to take a turn off to play it, right? It's not a song or anything. But
that's nice.
It's removing most of the set. Now, it's not removing the biggest bombs of the set except for one. There is one, like the 3rd best card in the set, it removes as well. But it's not removing a lot of the bombs of the set, but it's still removing the vast majority of the set. So even if my opponent's character isn't a bomb, it's like, hey, your 6-drop. Yeah, I'll remove that. You've got the Madrigal family out.
I think there's I think there's a couple cards that kind of fall into those, like you said, the depends on what deck you're sort of playing. Put that thing back is a very tempo oriented card. Delaying your opponent one turn is not necessarily my favorite thing to do. But if you're on a sort of strict tempo here where you're going faster than them, one turn is all that really matters, right?
Rapunzel is a pretty similar effect, but you do have to discard a card.
I mentioned if you I told you there was several tempo cards at 4. So if you go a 1-drop into Mike, into Woody, into Rapunzel, or if you Rapunzel into Sing, put that thing back. It's like you filled up your hand so much that you're still playing characters, so you don't care that you're down a card for those. You care that your opponent's board is empty. and that does a really good job at so there's emptying your opponent's board.
Cards here that are uninkable at 4 cost, but they also have my favorite 4 letters to see on any Disney lore kind of card: DRAW, draw. And so Merida, this character may end at 4 cost, uninkable, 3/3, enter exerted, draw a card. What do you think? You doing it?
I think it's going to play out a lot worse than most people think. I still think it's playable, but if you're pushed
the second ability during your turn, whenever another character of yours enters play exerted, you may draw a card. I think is a pipe dream to pretend like you're going to be able to get that off with your Powhatan staff that you got in your 1-drop. Yay! No, I don't think you should be going for that. The other one though is Merlin. 4 cost, 1/4. Again, I hate the stats. Hate that it's uninkable. But when you play it, draw a card from the bottom of your deck. Top, bottom, who really cares? We're not, indifferent to us.
I mean, unless you played Besties
potentially,
forever, then you
for the most part you don't,
because you've stacked it. So if you play that card and you have Merlin in your deck,
that's fair. For the most part, though, it is the same as drawing off the top of your deck. You're just getting another card. Unless you have 2 of these Merlins, in which case then you're drawing the other Merlin. Now we're kind of at a Kevin situation, in which case maybe it gets less valuable. But
fine. I think it's fine. I think it's playable because it's still a 4 willpower, 2 lore draw card. If you're a controlling deck and you've kind of done a good job at stabilizing the board, you can kind of take a turn off just to get extra resources. If you're an aggro deck and you need a 4 willpower 2 lore quester that draws you a card, you're fine with that. It's not doing anything particularly great, but it's doing enough things fine that I think it's, again, an easy cut if you're low on uninkables. But I would play this over Merida probably because I get to quest with it and draw the card, whereas Merida might never.
Where do you draw the card right away, right? Right.
You do, but she might never get to quest because she has to come and play Exerted.
You get to draw the card right away, and you'll get to quest most likely.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
All right, let's move into late game. 5 costs.
This is like we're an hour and a
fine.
half in, guys. I told you going over so many cards. It takes me 8 hours to go over
we
this
got
set.
this.
and you wanna
5
go
drops
over
though,
all
I
these
think
cards.
things start really spicing up here because I've just got like a ton of really good 5 drops here. We've already mentioned Gaston, world's greatest criminal mind on a understated body. I think it's great, right?
Yeah, especially with the 2-cost Lilo, if you're lucky enough to get the 5-cost Lilo and Stitch, but the 2-cost Lilo combines really well with Gaston. There's really, I think, only 16 characters that are 5 strength or less, but as opposed to Red Alert, some of the most powerful cards in this set are 5 strength and above. So these are
very
good
important.
like insurance policy.
I think so I had Horn King and Sully, both 5-cost uninkables with decent stats. But for me, I like both of these because they are essentially card draw. You play Sully, you get a card from your discard. At 5 costs, you should have something decent in there. That's card draw. Horn King is potentially multiple cards drawn. You know, if you have a 2 and a 3 drop or something that are decent, play this, quest at 1, play them both the next turn. Any
If you saw my 5 drop, I think I undervalued Horn King because I wasn't. Sometimes you just get in the routine of it's always this way with the game, and I'm used to, you know, once per turn do X, and so it just didn't really sink in for me that you can do it any number of times for the turn. So, you know, if you play him on 5 and then on turn 6 ink to 6 and play your 1, 2, 3 back again because you've had Horn King in your mind that you're working towards, so you're doing everything you can to trade with your opponent's characters early, or you draw them late game, and there's a decent amount of card draw in this set, so you're up to, you know, 7, 8 ink, and it's like all of a sudden, a lot of my board's coming back. That can be very impactful. Now, the floor is, you know, he gets traded with by, you know, most 3 drops and above, and you get one thing back that's decent. That's still fine, right? You're still fine to play that. But there is definitely a disparity between floor and ceiling here. It's just I think the ceiling's much higher than I anticipated or that I really processed. So I'd rank him relatively high. But he's a legendary.
not seeing him.
It's not likely that you're going to see him. So I'm more interested in the commons and uncommons
in that case,
and maybe some rares.
We'll
to
just
talk about,
let's just skip over like a giant chunk of these cards that I pulled out that are all shift. Ironically, most of them are shift cards. They are all also rare pluses. I think
Rare's fine. Rare, you're going to see a
We'll go from legendary and above then. Rapunzel and Flynn Rider, I think, is great. I think you quest, you draw a card, whatever card you were planning on playing, you play it anyway, and you basically drew a card. It's a legendary you're not going to... Yep. And
don't
then
forget to ink before
Lilo
you do
and
that.
Stitch. I mean, 5 cost 3, 5 quest for 3, support, resist 1. Nothing. Exactly.
One more than the S word.
Winnie the Pooh. And Piglet, and Piglet 2. Third best card in the set. This character gets +1 for each different ink type of character you have in play. We did have this conversation off.
We had this conversation ahead of time. I think 4 is going to be pretty consistent to achieve, especially in a set.
Let me ask this question, and we're going to ask this again when we get to the even better card in this set. How few of lore? Where is the break point? How few of lore before this card becomes bad in your opinion? And like where is that line? Sort of, is 3 lore good?
Yep.
If you play it, it's the only card on your board.
Right.
That's where it's bad. 3 lore is fine, right? 3 lore would be almost
5 cost 3, 4 quest for 3.
3 lore puts it below Pluto, right? But Pluto is much above a vanilla stat line. So 3 would be bad, but fine. 4 is what you should expect and what you should be, you know, working towards. 5, you're happy. 6, you're late.
4 and above is really where you are hoping this card gets. And what you're saying is, based on the math that you've calculated and the simulations you've run, that this is very reasonably doable for Winnie the Pooh. Okay. But it's a super rare.
I thought 4 was going to be the average, but 4 is played out to be almost
much more
not the floor, but like
right. Okay.
The average is probably like 4.5. Yeah. There's just so much, you know, dual link flying around, and just there's so many cards that are relatively equal in value and replaceable that you just stack your deck and mulligan and play cards out in a way that gets you that ink variety. Where this is bad is probably top decking later in a battle where you guys want to slugfest, right? If you've got a board stall, we talked about breaking board stalls. Talk about breaking a board stall. I drop this down. My opponent's like, well, I have to quest now because if I don't, you win
for up to 6.
turn.
Yeah, so I mean, like, it's got a high ceiling. Aladdin and Genie. You play this character, you may put any number of cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck in any order. If you do, draw that number of cards +1. So this is at.
I think it's just too consistently
at the very least,
3/3,
this is a 5-cost 3/3 quest for 2 draw card, which is basically worse than Genie, like Wish Fulfilled used to be, right? Like, I mean, we're a little spoiled. It is.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You like this? You don't like this? C mid.
I think just relative to all the other goodness at 5 drop, it starts feeling a little underwhelming. There's so many things I'd rather do at 5.
It feels really underpowered
for
basically getting that card draw.
Yeah. I'd probably rather drop Pluto at 5.
We've talked about this.
I'll tell you honestly, I kind of like Pluto because, one, I think support can be somewhat undervalued, especially when you have a character like Gaston in play. That can help,
How to see threads the needle between Red Alert and Gaston.
I mean, we've talked about the Pluto a bunch here. I don't know if we can.
There's very little that can
show
interact
it on
with Pluto.
screen here, but it's a 5-cost 4/4 quest for 3 support. I mean, that's like that's just stats. I love stats, right? Like that's good stats.
There we go.
Another card that is
sorry,
you're probably not going to find, but when you pull the enchanted one, Scar created by the Vine, congratulations. During your turn, whenever one of your Floodborn character banishes another character in a challenge, gain 1 lore. Don't care about that too much, but fill the ranks during an opponent's turn. Whenever one of your Floodborn characters is banished, draw a card. Are there enough Floodborns for this to be relevant or useful, or is this just like it's a legendary, you're not going to find it, and even if you don't play it?
We see 2 of the playable Vinelings at this cost, Hera and Robin Hood. Robin Hood much more so than Hera. Hera I've got borderline playable, but still playable. And then there's a 2-cost, effectively 3/2 Gaston, which is playable-ish in that it's a vanilla 3/2 for the most part. The rest are really understated relative to what they do. So, if you've got just the perfect storm of your half your deck is Vinelings and they can really balance off each other, great. But honestly, even if I could stack my deck, the perfect run out of 1 through 5 in Vinelings isn't that great, even when you all combine their abilities together. And I'm not getting to stack my deck, so I think the consistency is going to be so bad. I like what they were trying to do. I hope they try again.
That's fair. I agree with that. The Robin Hood, I think, is good. I have that on my list. 4/5 gives off Floodborn's alert. Alert is very valuable.
What about this dash par?
Yes,
the 5/4/4.
That is, I think, arguably the best.
The rare. Oh, good. It is considerably better than Rapunzel and Flynn Rider because your opponent is going to, again, be stretched to interact with it, whereas Rapunzel and Flynn Rider are going to get.
I mean, this evasive and when you quest, revealing that top card, and then you can play it.
Yeah. Now, the downside is you are forced to play what's on the top of your deck, so it's not going to be as efficient turns as you might have been otherwise, but you're going to get so much value out of it that you're going to stop caring. So, I would say the first turn that you quest with him is going to be the, break point of, is it such an inefficient turn that it's going to sacrifice things? Keep in mind, you don't have to play it. You can just put it in your discard. Also, keep in mind that you can shift and sing with those. So, if it's a song, you can sing it. If it's a shift line, you can shift it.
Also, you may reveal the top card. So the one sort of downside of this, 1-cost dash par, as you pointed out, amazing 1-drop. So now you shift this on 3, but obviously you can't use its ability, right? You've just
I'm never shifting this.
Even if you shift it.
I'm never shifting this. Unless if my opponent has a genie and they're being really aggressive and I have to remove that
That's
genie,
fair.
that's about the only time I'm shifting.
You know, I guess you'd have to evaluate the scenarios, because I think you're right. You're probably right. Just waiting 2 turns to play it. Right,
Well,
right.
just you're
So
not getting
that's what
value
I
on
was
the
getting
turn
at, is
from it
like
that
you're
you're
definitely
shifting,
not
right?
getting value the initial turn that you're shifting it,
Yeah.
but it's a May, so you don't even have
Yeah.
to discard that card off the top on the first turn. Like, if you
Yeah.
wanted to get this out essentially
Yeah.
1 turn earlier to be able to use its ability by shifting it on 3 and then using the ability on 4 again. But yeah, that dash parting is great.
Yeah. But the thing is 4 and 5, you probably have your curve lined up.
Fair.
If you don't have your curve lined up, then maybe. But you probably have your curve lined up then. It's turn 6 after where it's like, I probably don't have a 6 drop unless I've been lucky. Because if you kept like 1 through 6 in your hand hoping for
Agreed.
ink, that's a dangerous game to play. So I'm usually mulling away pretty much any 6 drop. So you're hoping to draw into the 6 drop. And if you don't, brilliant. But turns 4 and 5, chances are you've got plays to make. I'd just rather play this on 5 and keep my dash. Okay, there's one last 5 drop that I feel necessary to talk about because I'm just gonna have so much fun with it, which is Sun Yi. Sun Yi is has the panda shift, 2 costs, but you can shift onto any red panda and morph. So now, you know, I've got 2 Meilin Lees, I've got 1 of the Ming Li, I've got I've got so many targets, and she is just such a brilliant, like, quasi removal. My favorite line is the 2 cost 2/3 Meilin Li, because when you shift onto her, she gains evasive until the start of your next turn. So now my opponent can't remove my shift target. So I get to just keep doing it again and again and again. And also, if they've got an evasive character, I get to challenge into the evasive character because it gets evasive right away until the start of my next turn once I shift it. So she is just going to be a heck of a lot of fun. If you happen to be lucky enough to get 2 of her, and all of a sudden you get 4 damage, you can even heal her if you wanted, like, fiddle around by just shifting on, questing,
the
bounce
heal
it back,
is
and you get
huge.
to heal the 4
I've been
damage
testing
off
like a core deck with these. Not actually, I think it plays Sun Yi, but these temporary shifts. Not only can you shift on, quest, and then take it away, so that now, okay, well, they can banish your like 2/3 or whatever. But next turn for 5, you're gonna play the full character again and get another set of value questing out of it. But like you said, you shift this, you challenge, you remove their threat, all the damage is gone, it's back to your hand, and you know, it's like nothing ever happened here. You know, you just Men in Black wiped their memory here. So
but you know,
nice.
I think what also to Keith's
I'm gonna have a lot of
point
fun with this.
earlier is that this is also just a good card to play at 5.
Yep.
5/5 body quest for 2. Like, that's a pretty decent stat line in this set. Yeah,
Cool.
and it's like,
If
so
that's your
not only
floor,
can you get the benefit, and actually I'm really glad you brought it up because I was curious as to, like, is it worth it in limited to do this temporary shift knowing you get that card back with the benefits of the healing. So really great to hear that the Mind Palace of Heath.
It's almost one of my favorite shifts because she's got so many targets to shift onto, and it only costs 2 to shift it. And that healing, like, she's almost one of my favorite shifts in the entire set, and we've got some amazing
one of the best in the entire game. I
shift
mean,
characters in this
we
set.
2 shift to 5 costs are, there's only like 2 in the whole game, period. You know, we're talking the Queen and like, I mean, talk about turn 2, like Sing Whole New World and stuff. I mean, we're infinity in like a year or so is going to be just mind-bogglingly insane with some of these cards here.
They had more easy shift
crazy
targets for her.
But I have
so we're
moving to the late game.
Moving to 6 drops here,
right.
And late game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's just do late game. Let's
so
just do
moving out of
6+.
that aggro territory. What do we got, Keith?
Yeah. So now we're into the late game, and this is where, in theory, this is where you get 5N plus, really, is where you start getting the payoff for the discipline that you've had at 1 through 4 for playing your game, right? If you're aggro, you've already capped out, and the payoff is like just getting to 20 before your opponents get to these cards. Obviously, if you're a late game build, it's I've stabilized the board, and now I get to reap the rewards. But where I see people falling short at the late game is they're just assuming their bombs are going to save them. And if they didn't have a disciplined game plan up until that point, you could drop the best card in the set, but if your opponents controlled the board and controlled the pace and they're the quester, you could really fall short. As well, even if you have stabilized the board, you can wait too long. Right? You can be like, I've got this locked in the bag, I've got my bombs coming, we're great, and then all of a sudden your opponent finds the removal that they need to break that state, or they find their bomb and it trumps yours, etc., etc. So you really need to work on closing out quickly. So stay disciplined early, have your game plan, follow through on it, but then close the buddy game. So yeah, don't try to get too fancy as much as I'm greedy, so I love like just overdoing it. But you should.
So what are we taking in this?
Well, at 6 costs, we have the best card in the set, arguably, right? You're right. Two best cards. In the set, yeah. So the real question is, which one is number one? I'll let you go ahead and tell us.
Oh, yeah. It's easily the card that shouldn't exist. It's With a Few Good Friends. This card should be banned and limited. If you care, Ravensburger, if you cared at all about the pre-release experience, you would ban this card in limited. Because taking one card out of a player's deck is, doesn't feel great, but is fine. But subjecting people to having this played against them is not okay. Friends don't let friends play.
This is basically poo, but drawing cards.
Yeah. Imagine, hey, gaining 4 lore is pretty good. You know what's even better than gaining 4 lore? Gaining 4 cards effectively for free.
All could potentially have one or more lore on them.
So,
Yeah.
So this is where, again, you don't want to sabotage your deck and, sabotage your game plan and your playstyle just to lean into this. But when there's so many filler cards in your deck that are replaceable one with the other, mulligan with and play out with the mindset of having diverse inks. If I got 2 cost 3/2s in my hand, well, I'm going to play the one that's a different ink color than my 1-drop or my 3-drop, because why wouldn't I? If I draw into this, and as well, if I've got this, again, I'm a bit of a greedy boy. This might be risky, especially if you got too many uninkables in your deck, but I'm just keeping 1 through 3 at different ink colors and trying to hardball 4 cards to find my With a Few Good Friends. Because in theory, I've had several games where I've gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sing with my 4-drop and my 2-drop, draw 5.
So you're right. So
and then the game's over.
We know. I would say if they draw 4 plus, the game is probably over.
Unless you've aggroed them, if you've been very aggressive and they haven't done anything with that advantage, right? But yes. Chances are, if you draw 4 plus cards off 1 card, the game's over. Remember when we were comfortable paying 5 for 3 cards? Hard ink.
I was
with gosh, I'm forgetting the action now, but the Iago
right
action
in front of me.
We were fine paying 5 for 3 cards, hard ink, and this we get to sing and probably
Finders
draw
keepers
4 plus often enough.
There we go. I knew I had it in front of me.
And 3 cards is probably your worst case scenario. Unless you've really had your board trashed by your opponent and you're both in top deck mode. That's about the only time where this card is bad, and it's so infrequent.
That's fair. I think this is really good. The number 2 card, if people haven't guessed already, is this, the Peter Pan and Tinkerbell shift card, right? 6 cost, 5/4, quest for 2, gives everything evasive, including itself. So who cares if you shift it? A 6 cost 5/4 is not the worst stats, and giving everything evasive is just.
When I said your Gaston insurance policy, this is what
makes sense, because this can just sit there unexerted and do, it doesn't have, you don't have to give it the chance to interact with it. You have that one alert character that I've done this so many times where there's a couple sets ago with Amos Slade, right? The 4/3 alert, and I'm like, this is my removal for their 1 evasive, right? They're gonna have one that they're gonna find, and I'm gonna find this one, and I'm trading it. Well, too bad all of their cards are evasive, and the one that is giving them all evasive isn't turning sideways, so your alert characters are basically worthless. So you need to hope that you have you need to hope that you've had
this set more than anything,
like Gantu tier 1 through 4 curve of Floodborns, and then a Robin Hood, and then then maybe, you know, or some sort of removal, like you said, the Gaston, one that we're going to get to later, the Red Moon Ritual, potentially work as well. But
yeah, that's one of your prime answers, because Red Moon Ritual is a card that you want regardless, and Gaston, yeah, you need it, but isn't necessarily as overtly strong, because again, it's only 16 targets in the set without support. I will say that, especially in this set, I'm always about like get value, right? If you've heard me talk, I love a good value card. However, this is one card where, referring to Gaston, where I want you to be disciplined, because if you don't need to remove your opponent's characters, you've stabilized the board, or you have an advantage, you probably want to sit on Gaston as that insurance policy. Hey, they've got the 4-cost 5/5 out. I could remove it, but we are actually on fairly board parity, or I'm ahead and I'm comfortable right now. I'm not going to try and close out the game by removing their 4-cost when they might have a bomb around the corner that I really need to address. And I will be sad that I use Gaston for that. So try to be a little bit disciplined with your Gaston, because there's so many.
Honestly, I think the same goes for
cards
probably any of your removal. I think what you said there, Heath, is not even a limited lesson. It is not good advice in limited, draft, sealed. It is good advice in the game of Lorcana, probably in all TCGs. You know, think about, do you need to remove this character, right? Sitting on your removal is, at least in my experience as a first-time TCG player playing Lorcana, the more I grow in this game, the more I realize, you know what? Sometimes just like letting that removal like age, you know, put it in the wine cellar, just let it get real nice and mature, and then like next thing you know, you just boom, you've got the perfect target for it, and you're like, this is the occasion. This is when we break out this really nice aged removal that I've had in my hand for 7 turns here. So I think that's really, really good advice. And Red Moon Ritual, it's like we've seen a lot of these like 6-7 cost like removal cards, like what is the one, Out of Order. There's one that's like return an item and banish a character, or whatever, all these weird ones. This is the first one that I think is like very reasonably playable by being sting together. You know, sure, it might take like your 2 through 4 drop or whatever to sing this, but like being able to sing this Dragonfire and remove their 5 or 6 drop rather than have to like spend a whole turn or something like that makes this a, you know, 7 cost remove 1 character. Bro, I played with B prep in the game. All right, 7 cost removes all characters on the entire board. All right, I'm 1 character for 7 costs unequal, but in reality, I think it's probably worthy of one of your unequal slots.
In limited, I would rather this over Be Prepared, because I want my board to stick around.
And honestly, I mean, what's great about this is that it's
and also just the 7 cost unequal stuff.
Like we talk about the ability to find these cards. This is a card you have a much higher likelihood of finding in your packs. All right.
We're going totally sideways, but in a theoretical set where I had to choose between Dragonfire and this in a draft pack, I would probably choose this.
Well, if you think about it, turn 4
pay 5.
Sorry, Vince. Go ahead.
Vince really wants to keep moving
on.
Any last thoughts on 7 through 8 here?
No, there a lot of them are higher rarity, but just there's a lot of stuff that's, you know, really good shift. All I'll just say is, regardless of which card you're talking about, ask yourself, am I getting good value for the shift? Am I either mitigating the loss of the shift card, like a Sully and Boo, like an Omnidroid, or am I getting good enough value when I shift it that it's worth it? Just shifting it because I get a favorable challenge out of it, like with a Darkwing and Launchpad.
I want to point out, I don't even care what Heath's response to this is. Dashpar and Violetpar, Omnidroid, Ming Li, and the Vine. I'm playing all of those cards in my sealed deck, and you can't change my opinion. Okay? Yes.
The Vine, especially.
Yep, 10 cost, 10.
He's absolutely putting
I'm playing
the
Vine.
Yep,
I'm playing.
Vine
you can't change my mind. It's inkable. It's inkable. What? If I play that card, you lose the game. Okay.
Yeah. The fact that these are inkable is the huge part, right? The fact that they're inkable is what saves them. This is the problem we've had in the past. We've had a lot of high cost stuff that's uninkable. It's like if this was inkable, I'd take a chance on it.
And I'm
but
taking that chance.
Well, now we can take a chance.
We'll see how it turns out. All right. Join us next week to find out.
No, I love the good discussion, but I also know that Heath put out 8 hours of content going through each one of these, and you should absolutely go check that out. And also,
you had some amazing guests
recap
on there as well. I swear I listed some of these, but
no, I have them in our outro. If you
you have them in the outro. Okay. Well, we won't forget you guys then.
Yeah,
I read the show notes.
I put them in the intro. He moved them to the outro.
All right, let's move on here to Constituents Corner. We don't have the mayor today because we have our guest Heath as well today. We were supposed to have our Captain Jimmy on the episode, but unfortunately he's feeling under the weather. I hope he's feeling better. But we have Zelda. Megan asks, I'm semi-familiar with bread. How do you decide what is big enough for a bomb without costing too much? And I think this is a question for you, Heath.
The vine's a bomb.
Yeah, so we established this when we were talking about bread, and you're not the only one asking. So, absolutely great question. Based on the way that you asked the question, it feels like you're feeling like a bomb is a big character, and it absolutely doesn't have to be. Like I said, it's anything that just really shifts the nature of. So we talked about Peter Pan and Tinkerbell. It's just that completely shifts the dynamic of the board the second that it drops down. That is absolutely a bomb. Piglet and Winnie the Pooh and Piglet, right? Like. There's a board stall. My opponent drops this down. I might not have a way to win the game at that point. They've now gone from, I thought they could only quest for, up to 16, but now all of a sudden they can quest up to 21 next turn, right? So the type of cards that just completely outweigh the average card. That's what you would consider a bomb. It's nothing that we can ever define because it changes depending on the set, depending on all sorts of things. It's no way to define that. It's just really think about the top cards in the set. The top 6 to 8 cards.
Well, not this set, Lumpy. Previous set, Lumpy.
Previous set, Lumpy would definitely qualify. Yeah.
ROV Captain Jimmy asks, how do you evaluate whether synergy cards in a set are worth going after or worth considering? So in sealed, like how much support versus payoff do I need versus just pure value picks?
Yep. Do you want me to just
yeah, no, let's do it. That's why you're here. You're a limited guest.
Well, I mean, before he answers, my answer is really simple. I don't think any up to date, like he said, toys and supers were great last set. I don't think any synergies have really been worth trying even. It's a very risky strategy. But I'm curious your thought. Do you
I'm hoping we'll get there. I'm hoping they'll lean into them more. Because it can be really fun to build the deck in limited. I will say that if you're lucky enough to open a really deep pool in one of the synergies, the question that you have to ask isn't how many of them do I have, it's how many are good on their own. So a card like Robin Hood that we saw, which is a 5-cost, 4/5, 2 lore, effectively with alert. That's just good on its own. If that didn't have the Vineling tagline, it just said alert on there, we'd play that card. So ask yourself first, how many of them are good on their own? And if you've got 5 or 6 that are good on their own, then maybe you can start layering in some that are kind of mid on their own, but will work well in conjunction with those. But the problem is, if you include too many cards that are mid on their own, and you don't draw them in order, and you inked one the turn before you drew the next one, and then all of a sudden everything starts falling apart. So you run a real risk of just completely sabotaging your deck by going after synergies if you just don't have things line up effectively. So start with cards that are good on their own. Then maybe you can, grant yourself a little bit of wiggle room to include some cards that are kind of
right. Lucas asks, do you sleeve your limited decks? Why or why not?
Double sleeved for your protection.
Like this is a trick question. Yes. No. I single sleeve everything.
Say, there are an enormous amount of folks that do limit it and don't sleeve their decks. So controversial.
I saw that. I was in Seattle, DLC Seattle. We were playing the first chapter sealed when the first chapter had some really significant value, and this person across from me just raw dogging it, no sleeves, and had Legendary Bell. They had Hades. They had Giant Fairy. They had who else? I think there was like 4 or 5 cards I clocked that I'm like, all of these at that time are worth like 20 plus. So you've got like $100+ deck that you're just.
All right. Kristen the Grape asks, what are some cards you think are going to be good in limited, but bad in core constructed?
I think that's one of the things I love about limited is there's so many cards that are good in limited that are bad in constructed. So in constructed, in any given set, how many cards do we actually pull out of it that we play with? 10? Less? Out of a 200+ card set. Whereas limited, there's a ton of cards you want to play with. So you get to play with cards that you wouldn't otherwise play with by playing limited. That's one of the things that I love about it. So I think there's a ton. We just looked at a few good friends. I don't think the honey deck's working in constructed. Maybe it does, but I don't see it yet. But that's obviously disgustingly broken in limited. I think the most common thing that you'll find is big efficient bodies. They're not usually like superstars in constructed, whereas our 4-cost 5/5 we just mentioned, the chef is absolutely a top card in limited.
Makes sense.
Right.
I think there's also cards that are good in constructed.
And then Paul asks, this, I feel like this is kind of a joke, but we'll do it anyway. Why do we create tier lists when it could just be broken down into include and don't include when it comes to these things?
I thought this was the most fascinating question. I'm tip my hat to you because I think that's a great question. I think the problem is that, yes, we do have a line of delineation. For me, it's I rank A, B, C as playable and D and F as not playable. You could say that's the line of include versus not include, but there's a lot of nuance. I mentioned earlier, if you're building towards a strategy with your deck, the difference in power level between a mid C, because I rank with C minus and plus, so I've got C, C minus, D plus, D. The difference in power level between a C and a D is not particularly significant. So if it supports my deck strategy more, I'm going to play that D over that C. So there's absolutely a lot of nuance there. So it's really just a matter of when it's sealed. Again, my A's and B's are the cards that I absolutely want to include. Those are those top 10 to 15 cards. I would even say C plus and above are those top 10 to 15 cards I'm looking to build my deck around. So those ones are obvious. Everything after that point has a lot of nuance.
That's fair.
Absolutely.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think I would hope at this point, I think you explained this really, really well earlier with those, like you said, synergies that get a little bump if you got another card in the deck that helps it out or something like that.
Yep. All right. And our last question here is from Jackalope Spam. He asks, what commons are you hoping to see in your packs?
And I think I mentioned this in the notes here, and I think you've even built your perfect pack here, right? So we can go back and show the cards here, and you can walk us through your sort of best card in each slot, essentially.
Yeah.
So number 1 is the Vine, right? Towering Stalk.
So 6 of these are going to be common, so we will answer your question. But it was posed. We decided we wanted to build the perfect pack here. So I'll lay the cards out here because the first card that I think about, of course, that I want in my pack is going to be with a few good friends. So now I'm saying I want my pack to kind of support that strategy. So I'm mixing up my ink cards a little bit to support that, but only a little bit because I still want that power level first, as I mentioned. And then the other rare plus slot has to be Pan and Tinkerbell. But that card plays itself, so I don't need anything else to be good with that. Everything else is going to support it. In fact, that actually means that I'm taking out any evasive cards other than 1 from this.
You don't need them anymore.
2, actually, because it's giving my cards evasives. Exactly, I don't need it. And then this card I wouldn't say necessarily is great, but there's some great shift lines for it, and it's just such a fun card for me that my foil is going to be a foil legendary, or in some way, shape, or form, I've got 3 rare plus, and one of them's my foil, and I'm putting in Dash and Violet in there. It is a card that's not very good on its own, so it needs that shift line, but there's every Violet and Dash is playable, and you've got more.
Fun.
So I think, especially if I'm stacking my pack, I'm going to get this out, and it is just so great when you get it out. All right, so there's my rare plus, right? We got some really busted cards there. So what are we supporting with those? Well, let's dip into the uncommons, and as you probably guessed, if we've got that shift line, we need to have Morph in the uncommons. So Morph's in there, and he's an Amethyst character. Again, we're thinking we got to have these different inks in there. And then, we're going to be trying to get cheeky with some late game power, so we've got to make sure we stabilize the early board. So, Andy, you're going to love this. Of course, another uncommon we're going to have is the Irate Chef. He's in there stabilizing the board. And then I'm the only one that gets to have fun. You don't. So I get my bombs out. Your bombs get removed. So, of course, we've got to have Red Moon Ritual in there as well as the last uncommon. No fun for you. And we get into our commons, and now I'm thinking about my curve. How does my curve go from 1 through 5 to 6, right? I want to be singing and drawing 5 or 6 cards. So, all right, we've got the perfect 1-drop that we've established. It's going to be questing early so that we're keeping pace with the aggressive player while still trying to manage their board, so they're not getting so far ahead of us on lore. And it's my shift target, one of my shift targets for the team-up card. All right, great. Perfect 1-drop. Now, how are we supplementing that with a good 2-drop? Again, we're trying to stabilize the board early, and if we manage to stall the board into our late game, then all the better, because now we get to shift both 1 and 2-drop on top of our team up. But even if she just controls the board for us and we just use Dash as the shift target, absolutely, or drop a Morph a little later. And again, we've got Ruby into Steel. We're good on the curve there. Now, 3, I'm going to have a couple 3s in there at common because it's going to depend on how the gameplay is playing out. Do I need a kind of pressure release valve when it comes to Woody here to kind of tweak that board position? But this doesn't actually support my with a few good friends strategy that well because it exerts my opponent's character, which is going to make me want to challenge another character, which means we're trading back and forth. I want a board stall. So this isn't my ideal. This is just kind of my, again, a little bit of insurance policy there. What I really want to see, again, we've got a new color and we're stabilizing the board, is our Buzz Lightyear. And I'm okay that it's not going to get evasive with Peter Pan if one of my characters doesn't, because I've stabilized the board and I've drawn so many cards. This is perfect in that spot. All right, now we get into the 4s. We've got the Irate Chef already, but again, he's Steel, so if we don't have to really dominate the board, then what's our kind of good plan B? Something with good stat lines, but is in a new color. And of course, we got to go with something a little bit simple, but good perfect stats. Value, which is in our Mickey Mouse here. So now we've got Ruby into Steel, into Emerald, into Sapphire. We're well on our way to having a good time here. Now into 5. Now we might be looking, hey, I've got that shift line ready. I want to drop Morph down and then just draw my 5 cards and call it a day and play whatever's off the top of the deck. However, if I'm still trying to stall the board out a little more, I'm going to sacrifice 1 card here and play a 5-drop that we all have adored, we've mentioned so far, which is the Pluto. I'm sacrificing my ink, my card draw a little bit there, but I'm making sure that I've got that locked in, because then I can potentially play Peter Pan, and if I've stabilized the board so much my opponent never wants to quest, then I can wait a turn to sing. Next turn I can drop Peter Pan and Tinkerbell, sing, draw 5 cards, and my opponent can't interact with my board.
That is pretty crazy. I think the saying goes, there's only so much fun to be had in any given game of Disney Lorcana, and I am here to have all of it.
It is a zero-sum game
boy.
For
Andy. What can I say?
Yes.
When it comes to Lorcana. But yeah, that's great. I love this perfect pack. Any last thoughts about this? All right. Well,
no. I've never had that exercise before. That was a lot of fun building my perfect pen.
I'm so glad. Well, we appreciate your questions, and we encourage you to ask them. You can ask them on any of our platforms at Spotify, YouTube, in the comments, or you can join our growing community on Discord and ask those questions in the Constituents Corner channel. And with that, we're going to move on to everybody's favorite segment, Villain of the Set. So, Heath, there used to actually be an effect here. I don't have the effect active anymore, so it's not as cool as it used to be.
He had like the
very cool
lower pitch effect to make him sound like evil or whatever.
Yeah. Exactly. Apologies to Gantu. Last week we announced the nominees for Villain of the Set from our weekly episodes, and those nominees were Cruella, Judgmental Traveler, Snowfort, Olaf, Snowman of Action, Mickey Mouse, Expedition Leader, Eleanor, Renowned Diplomat, Spooky Sight, Milo Thatch, Getting His Hands Dirty. The Intergalactic Council has tallied the vote, and the results are Tramp, Street Smart Dog. Oh wait, hold on. I'm getting a message from the Intergalactic Council that unfortunately Tramp was not a nominee in this set, so he is ineligible, but probably would have won anyway. And the true winner is Eleanor, Renowned Diplomat.
Yeah,
by good margin too.
Is there ever a doubt?
It's a little surprising to me.
Not at all. I might have voted for Eleanor above Tramp if they were both in the vote.
Wow.
Okay. What if Tree?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a great constructed player, but I played dogs, and
what about Willow? Yeah, what about Willow?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Willow. Okay. I would vote over either of them, but it would probably be Willow and then Eleanor and then Tramp for me. Again, I'm not a great constructed player, so don't take this for gospel. Just my experience in my local meta. Eleanor was. I like the mid-rangey play style that I can do with dogs. I built my deck around it, and so Eleanor really complemented that.
So we were giving a special prize for this.
Awesome.
Andy, do you know?
Yeah, I've got a prize.
What is the prize?
I'm working on the wheel. I don't know if you've already done that or not.
I already got the wheel. I already spin the wheel.
I have. It is a non-foil because I was not invited to Worlds, but it is a whole new world promo here, along with some goodies. We got the ROV custom card. We got some stickers and stuff. It's all in this fancy bag that I was told is how you send it to.
Oh, people. Right. Yes. That's a good shout out to our teammate Ryan.
Derp TCG. If you're ever on tcgplayer.com with our link that you've seen in this episode, and you're looking and you're like, man, should I buy this card from this seller or that seller? Derp TCG is the #1 seller on tcgplayer.com. Just saying.
So no, the funny thing is that well, I'm gonna respin it, but I was the winner.
You're supposed to remove like us.
I didn't remove on my name.
You also have to record it for legal purposes, okay? In case we get audited by the giveaway police.
Sebastian Sawyer is our winner.
Sebastian, congratulations! Thank you so much for voting on Villain of the Set. You have won this A Whole New World card. We will reach out to you. And find a way to get it to you. If for some reason you live outside the US, we'll have to have a chit chat, but it's just a card. We should be able to get it there, right? Like, let's mail the card.
So. I think so.
North America.
All right. Thanks, Heath, so much for joining us on this episode. Where can folks find you? And do you have any special shout outs?
Yeah. Well, you're talking about my guests in the outro, right? So I'll leave it to you to shout them out because they were amazing. I'm so grateful for everyone that I have on in their time. Where can you find me? YouTube and Twitter, I am at the Mad Drafter. On Instagram, that I'm just dipping my toe into, that was somehow taken. So I'm the Mad Drafter Lorcana on Instagram. Don't know how that was taken, but go figure. And just shout outs. So many. All my guests. all the viewers, everyone watching, everyone that's so thoughtful in the comments. Everyone's so gracious in there, and I'm so grateful for each and every one of them. To anyone that's helping their local community build up the limited scene, mentoring others, helping others with their deck building, whatever the case may be, I'm grateful for you. Even if you've never watched, don't care a thing about my channel, if you're doing things at your local community to grow limited, I am eternally grateful for you.
Well, we really appreciate that. Also, be sure to check out. Oh, Andy, are you doing this?
I was just gonna try and split it up here and make sure we shouted out Heath's complete limited series on YouTube. One he doesn't buy in cost.
But you gotta though. I'm sorry, I just gotta interject here though. It's not just we're in Attack of the Vine.
Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm sorry.
We start over here again.
Yeah.
The juice was definitely worth the squeeze on that one, Vince.
Be sure to check out Heath's complete limited series for Attack of the Vine on YouTube with guests, including but not limited to the Illumineers, Quest with Cole, Enchanted Kim, Lorcana Theo, Inquiry, and Mr. Burns from the Lore College. And if I'm forgetting anyone, I'm very He says, like,
that's
everyone. Give me a thumbs up. Like, I didn't forget anyone. Yes, let's go. I love you all. Definitely check that out. I literally 18-0 last set in sealed. I promise you, I reviewed Heath's videos as I was reviewing my cards every single time. Okay, it is the secret sauce. I promise.
Agreed with like 10% of it.
You're right. I did.
I watched them all except for the episode you were on, Andy. I'm sorry. No, I'm just kidding.
Like, I see enough of you, man.
I was like, I'm good. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you're joining us on audio, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
And if you're joining us on YouTube, which if you're not, you really should, because we have a lot of fun over here. Be sure to like, subscribe, check out all of our other content, including Deck Test Tuesday, the Mayor's Meta Report. We've got shorts coming out. Vince, are you opening like a one of every pack all the way through?
Well, that I have, that exists.
Right.
Fable, I couldn't get my hands on a Fable pack, all right? Okay.
Well, we're not millionaires here, Vince. None of us have won the lottery. That's really cool. Check that out on our YouTube, as well as our other content on our other socials at TikTok. Brad normally does this part, but we have a wonderful community on our Discord, so please check that out. Join it with the link below, as well as check us out on all of the other socials.
And until next week, stay safe, fellow villains. Be wary of wannabe heroes who want to disrupt your villainous plans. And as always, remember, the rules of villainy!